This is John Bunn. He spent 27 years wrongfully convicted of murder.
I'm an innocent man, Your Honor, and I have always been an innocent man.
While living in Brooklyn, New York, Bunn was only 14 years old when he was arrested by NYPD Detective Louis Scarcella. 14 years old, still a child. Bunn was interrogated without a parent or attorney present and was pressured into signing a statement. Bunn later spent 16 years behind bars and then 11 years out on parole, where he still fought to prove his innocence. During those 11 years on parole, he couldn't leave the state, couldn't travel, and lived under constant supervision for a crime he never committed. Then finally, his conviction was overturned based on the wrongdoing of Detective Scarcella, who has been connected to dozens of wrongful convictions, and the fact that there wasn't even probable cause to arrest Bunn in the first place.
I know that y'all convicted and had a wrong man in prison.
And after 27 years of fighting to clear his name, he is finally exonerated for 27 years. But before he leaves the courtroom, he has a moment with the judge where they embrace a rare moment of humanity in a system that failed him.
I want to say thank you, Your Honor, because in 27 years, I've been fighting for my life.
Bunn later filed a lawsuit against the city of New York and Detective Scarcella. His case is part of a larger investigation into Scarcella's methods that has led to multiple exonerations. This is David Ranta. He spent 23 years behind bars for a murder he did not commit. In Brooklyn, New York, Ranta was arrested by Detective Louis Scarcella. Yes, this is another wrongful conviction that's connected to Scarcella. Ranta was accused of killing a rabbi in a botched robbery. He was put in a police lineup run by Scarcella and was identified as the shooter. But decades later, reportedly, the key witness revealed that the detective had provided him with a description of whom to pick in the lineup. Scarcella allegedly told the witness which person to identify. There was no physical evidence linking Ranta to the killing, and the evidence presented to the jury was allegedly fabricated. Even Ranta's supposed confession was questionable. Ranta was then convicted and sentenced to 37.5 years to life in prison. But after spending over 2 decades in prison, the former witnesses admitted that they were pressured into testifying against Ranta. And now this is the moment his conviction gets thrown out.
Mr. Ranta, to say that I'm sorry for what you have endured would be an understatement and grossly inadequate, but I say it to you anyway. The defendant's motion to vacate the judgment of conviction is granted.
After his handcuffs were removed, he hugged his family. With all he owned thrown over his back, he walks out a free man. After his release, he reportedly received $2 million from the state and a $6.4 million settlement from the city of New York. Ranta's case was instrumental in exposing Scarcella's pattern of misconduct. This is Anthony Broadwater. He spent 16 years in prison for a rape he did not commit.
Based upon my review of the motions and the representations of counsel, this court grants the defendant's motion. They take his conviction, and the indictment is hereby dismissed. Thank you, Judge. That concludes the proceedings.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you, Judge.
Broadwater was arrested in Syracuse, New York in 1981 and convicted based on questionable eyewitness identification and flawed forensic evidence. The victim was author Alice Sebold, who would later write a memoir about her assault called Lucky. He maintained his innocence throughout his entire incarceration. After serving 16 years in prison, he was released but remained a registered sex offender. a label that destroyed his opportunities and his life. For 40 years, Broadwater carried the burden of being labeled a rapist. He couldn't find work. People crossed the street to avoid him. Then, in 2021, during a production process for a film adaptation of Siebold's memoir, an executive producer became uncomfortable with the story and hired an investigator. The investigator discovered that the evidence used to convict Broadwater was deeply flawed. The forensic testimony about hair analysis had been discredited by the FBI, and the identification procedures were unreliable. Siebold had actually identified a different man in the street, not Broadwater. This is the moment in court when Broadwater's conviction is overturned after 40 years.
Court grants defendant's motion. They take his conviction, and the indictment is hereby dismissed. Thank you, Judge. That concludes the proceeding.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you, Judge.
I couldn't help but cry. The relief that a district attorney of that magnitude would side with me.
He later received an undisclosed settlement from New York State. Alice Siebold publicly apologized and expressed her own horror at the injustice, and her publisher pulled her memoir from publication. But Broadwater's life had already been irreparably damaged. This is Nathan Myers. He spent 43 years behind bars for a murder he did not commit. And this is Clifford Williams Jr. He also spent 43 years in prison for the same murder he never committed. What makes this even more heartbreaking is that Williams is Myers' uncle.
Mother, she died while I was on death row, and I just wanted to get out and be with my sick kids. They was gone, and there wasn't nobody but.
In Jacksonville, Florida, Myers and Williams were arrested and convicted of a 1976 murder based solely on the testimony of a single witness who was the victim's girlfriend. There was no physical evidence linking them to the crime. No forensic evidence, no weapon, nothing. For over 4 decades, the uncle and nephew maintained their innocence from behind bars, while their family fell apart on the outside. Then finally, in 2019, the key witness recanted her testimony, admitting she lied under pressure from police. She revealed that Myers and Williams had nothing to do with the murder. This is the moment their convictions are overturned after 43 years. Williams, now 76 years old, and Myers, now 61, walked out of prison together as free men. They had entered prison as young men and emerged as senior citizens, having lost 4 decades of their lives. The state of Florida awarded them each $2.1 million in compensation, the maximum allowed under state law. But no amount of money can return the 43 years stolen from them or reunite them with the family members who died while they were locked away. This is Clemente Aguirre-Jarquin. He spent over 14 years on death row for murders he did not commit.
And I thank you for it from the bottom of my heart.
Aguirre was living in Florida when he was arrested and charged with brutally killing his neighbors, a mother and her daughter. He was convicted and sentenced to death based largely on circumstantial evidence and questionable forensic testimony. For 14 years, he sat in a cell awaiting execution for crimes he never committed. I knew I was innocent, but nobody believed me. Aguirre had 3 execution dates scheduled. 3 times he prepared to die for murders he didn't commit. Then DNA evidence emerged that pointed to another person entirely, the victim's own son, who had a history of violence and mental illness. This groundbreaking evidence proved that Aguirre could not have committed these murders. After spending 14 years facing execution, this is the moment the judge overturns his conviction. The conviction and death sentence are hereby vacated. Aguirre walked out of prison, no longer under the shadow of death. He had come within days of execution multiple times, saying goodbye to fellow inmates, preparing for the end. After his release, Aguirre received $2.1 million from the state of Florida. He now lives quietly, trying to rebuild the life that was nearly taken from him twice, once by wrongful conviction and nearly again by execution. This is Ricky Jackson. He spent over 39 years in prison for a murder he did not commit.
Mr. Jackson, you're going to be free to go. Life is filled with small victories, and this is a big one. I wish you good luck. Thank you. All right.
Jackson was arrested at 18 years old, living in Cleveland, Ohio. The main witness in the case was a 12-year-old kid named Eddie Vernon, who in fact didn't see anything. He was on a school bus and couldn't have witnessed the crime. But he said the police did pressure him into testifying against Jackson, which then later led to his conviction. Jackson initially was sentenced to die in the electric chair, but after spending 2 years on death row, his death sentence was reduced to life in prison. For nearly 4 decades, Jackson sat in prison knowing he was innocent. Nearly 4 decades later, the now 52-year-old Eddie Vernon came forward with the truth, stating that he never saw the murder happen and that police had fed him the story. The guilt had eaten away at him for years. Charges against Jackson were then dropped, and after being wrongfully imprisoned for 39 years, this is the moment that Jackson hears that he is free to go. Jackson is now outside for the first time as a free man. He entered prison as a teenager in 1975 and walked out as a 57-year-old man in 2014. Jackson received $1 million in compensation from the state and an additional $2.65 million for lost income. But nothing can return the nearly 40 years stolen from him.
What's your first meal you're going to have? What have you been thinking about?
Everybody asks that. I mean, I don't really, as long as it's not prison food.
This is Brian Banks. He spent nearly 6 years behind bars for a crime that never happened. I'm finally free. I can finally live my life. While living in Long Beach, California, Banks was only 16 years old when he was accused of rape by a classmate named Winetta Gibson. Banks was a star linebacker with a full scholarship to USC and dreams of playing in the NFL. But those dreams were shattered when he was arrested. Facing 41 years to life if convicted at trial, Banks was pressured by his attorney to take a plea deal. He was told he wouldn't stand a chance in front of a jury. He spent 5 years in prison and then 5 years on parole with a monitoring device around his ankle, registered as a sex offender. But Banks never stopped fighting for his innocence. Then finally his accuser contacted him on Facebook and admitted she had fabricated the entire story. She confessed that the rape never happened. She wanted to be friends again. With the help of the California Innocence Project, Banks recorded her confession, and his conviction was overturned. This is the moment in court when the judge vacates his conviction. The petition for writ of habeas corpus is granted. Your conviction is dismissed. Banks walked out of that courtroom a free man, and within weeks, he signed with the Atlanta Falcons, finally getting his chance to play professional football. He later played for the Las Vegas Locomotives. Banks's story was turned into a feature film to inspire others who fight for justice. His accuser and her mother had received $1.5 million from the school district, money they never returned. This is Daniel Villegas. He spent over 20 years fighting for his freedom for a double homicide he never committed. In El Paso, Texas, Villegas was arrested at 16 years old, where an El Paso detective reportedly threatened him with beatings and the death penalty if he did not confess. And and the teenage Villegas signed a confession that was prepared by the detectives. He tried to withdraw his confession a few hours after, telling them he had made it all up, but by then it was too late. He was charged with 2 counts of capital murder, with the false confession being the only piece of evidence against him. The jury was unable to agree on a verdict in his first trial. Villegas had a retrial, and the jury returned a guilty verdict, and he was given a life sentence. He spent 18 years in prison before his conviction was thrown out. After spending 18 years in prison, the verdict was thrown out, and Villegas remained out on bond, where he got married and started a family. He had 2 children during this time, but now we're in the 3rd trial.
If the defendant will please stand.
The last 25 years of his life, much of it in prison, has all led up to this moment.
In the District Court of El Paso County, Texas, 409th Judicial District, the State of Texas versus Daniel Villegas, number 94-0D09328. Verdict Form B. We, the jury, find the defendant Daniel Villegas not guilty of... Mr. Villegas, you have been under many conditions in this court. You are no longer under any conditions in this court. You are free to leave. Good luck to you.
Reportedly, Villegas has filed a lawsuit against the city of El Paso. His case highlighted the dangers of coerced confessions, especially from juveniles. This is Joey Watkins. He spent 22 years behind bars for a murder he did not commit. Watkins was only 15 years old when he was arrested in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, for a murder that occurred during a street robbery. He was just a kid walking home from school. He was convicted based on the testimony of a witness who identified him months after the crime, despite giving police a different description initially. The original description didn't match Watkins at all. There was no physical evidence connecting Watkins to the murder. No fingerprints, no DNA, nothing. He was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. For over 2 decades, Watkins fought from his cell to prove his innocence. I was just a kid. I didn't kill anyone. His family never gave up on him. Then, the witness who identified him came forward and recanted, admitting the identification was wrong and that he had been pressured by police to pick someone. New evidence also revealed that another person had actually committed the murder, someone who matched the original description. This is the moment Watkins learns his conviction is overturned after 22 years. Mr. Watkins, the Commonwealth joins in your motion. Your conviction is vacated and you are free to go. Watkins, now 37 years old, walked out of prison having spent his entire youth locked away for a crime he never committed. He entered prison as a teenager and emerged as a middle-aged man. He missed his entire young adult life. Watkins filed a lawsuit against the city of Philadelphia, and his case is ongoing. He now works to help other juveniles who have been wrongfully convicted, advocating for criminal justice reform. This is Kirstin Lobato. She served 16 years in prison for a murder she did not commit. At 18 years old, she was charged with the brutal murder of a homeless man in Las Vegas. Lobato was a young woman from a small town in Nevada. She was first convicted of first-degree murder, but on a retrial, she was convicted on the lesser charges of voluntary manslaughter and sentenced to 13 to 45 years. The prosecution's timeline never made sense, and after spending 16 years behind bars, a new hearing was presented with evidence that confirmed The actual day of the victim's death was July 8th, when Lobato was 3 hours away in Panaca, Nevada with her family. Phone records, receipts, and witness testimony all proved she was nowhere near Las Vegas. This evidence proved that Lobato could not have possibly committed these crimes. She had an ironclad alibi. This is Lobato outside for the first time as a free woman.
I feel overwhelmed, I feel excited, I feel grateful. I'm so happy.
Lobato had maintained her innocence for 16 years, never wavering. She spent her entire 20s and early 30s behind bars for a murder that occurred when she wasn't even in the city. Lobato has filed a lawsuit against the Las Vegas Police Department and Clark County, and her compensation claim is ongoing. Her case has become a rallying cry for those who fight against wrongful convictions of women.